Another podcast, another day, with half the Pocketnow team buried under snow. So as we suffer the abuse of another East Coast winter storm, we thought we'd bring on a guest who's experienced in snow matters. And it's lucky for us he knows something about smartphones, too. HTC expert Nick Gray joins us this week to talk M8 rumors and to help us announce our Nexus 5 giveaway winner. All that and a whole lot more on episode 083 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week audio podcast where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and wearables. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow, and joining me for today's show, our senior editor and man of steel, Taylor Martin. Happy snow day to you, sir.
Hey, are we recording yet?
Yeah, we're recording. You believe it.
How's it going?
It's going as well as it can go under this white blanket of awful.
Yeah, we never get this much snow here, and right now I think we're sitting at like 8 inches.
And that's why we're having an expert on from HTCSource.com, the man from Minnesota, Nick Gray. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. How long have we been talking about having you on the Weekly, man? I think it's been like over a year since we met at CES 2013.
Yeah, something like that. Keep bugging you, harassing people on Twitter.
Nick is joining us incognito from his office. Now, I understand it's not snowing there, and you're actually having quite a balmy day in Minnesota.
Comparatively balmy. We're hoping for a high of 28 to 32 degrees today, and that's going to be the highest temperature we've had in about 3 weeks. It's been miserable here. We've had a couple. Earlier this week, it was negative 12 degrees when I was walking into work, and we've probably had a couple. We've had schools canceled for cold only. We haven't had a snow day, actually. We've had 4 cold days, which has been ridiculous. It's the first time in like 20-some years that it's been this cold.
Wait, a cold day? Like a cold day is a day where school is canceled because it's too cold?
Yeah, so the governor canceled school for the entire state of Minnesota for fear that if a school bus breaks down, the kids will freeze to death.
Everyone will freeze to death before someone can rescue them. Wow. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that happened here in Charlotte a few weeks ago.
A school bus froze to death? Everyone in the school bus froze to death?
No, they had a cold day, or they had like 4 cold days in a row. And anybody want to guess what temperature it was those days?
Yeah,
I would say 22 degrees for you guys.
Yeah, 40.
You're actually closer, Michael. It's 30. It was like 33, 34
30 degrees. It's a cold day.
It was a cold day.
That's
I'm like,
ridiculous.
You guys are...
Yeah, so it's really hard to feel sorry for ourselves, Taylor, when we hear these stories from Minnesota. But at the same time, the snow has caused us some trouble. We'll talk more about that trouble when we get into the Windows Phone section. I keep getting tweets about this, and it's so infuriating that the weather is keeping us from the fun. But first, we have something very fun to do. Do you guys want to help me announce a giveaway winner? Huh? Say
well,
yes.
I mean, there's no build up for it because you won, right?
Who won? You won?
Me.
Yeah, of course you won because you entered, right?
I thought I won.
Did everyone on the show enter our own podcast? Our own giveaway, rather? No, the winner was selected this morning through Rafflecopter's excellent randomization option. I want to remind everyone that this giveaway was going on for like 9 days. You had a chance to enter. You had a chance to enter every day, and a great many people entered. Taylor, do you know what the numbers are on that off the top of your head? I think we got up close to like 200,000.
209,614 total entries.
That is awesome. Well, isn't that crazy? Yeah, this was a partnership with dbrand Skins. The winner will be receiving a white Nexus 5 32 gig size, in addition to 4 dbrand skins and 1 additional skin already applied to the device. It's an awesome prize. dbrand made it happen for us, and we thank them for that. And gentlemen, what say we do a tabletop drum roll, and I will try and figure out how to pronounce the winner's name. Here we go. The Nexus 5 white 32 gigs with 5 dbrand skins go to Ahmed Malinger, or perhaps Malinger. In either case, Ahmed, congratulations. You've won a heck of a prize, if I do say so myself, and we will be in contact very shortly to arrange shipment. Congratulations to you.
Yes, congratulations. And my dog tried to join in on that, but
Yeah.
like I started tapping on the table, and he's like, "Oh, what do you want? I'm right here."
That is awesome. Well, again, we thank everyone for entering to the 209,000 and some odd people who did not win. We're very sorry, but we thank you so much for your interest, for your tweets, for your Facebook follows. And hey, if this led you to Pocketnow or dbrand for the first time in your lives, wonderful. Welcome, and we hope you stick around. So, that out of the way, gentlemen, let's say we move on to the massive news block of the week. We have a lot of Android news, and while last week was completely dominated by Galaxy S5 stuff, this week the needle has kind of swung back the other way. We have a boatload of HTC news, and this is part of the reason that Nick is on the show today, because not only did we make this promise over a year ago over drunken In-N-Out burgers at 2 a.m. in Las Vegas, but
And I may or may not have bailed on you guys.
Yeah, that's right. Taylor wasn't there, but he wishes he was.
I wasn't, but guess
Actually,
who got on the podcast first?
That's a good point. What's Nick trying to say?
No, I think Taylor actually got caught up. Did you ever actually go to that Samsung event after the HTC one? I think you stayed at the HTC one. At CS.
No, I got to the Samsung one, yeah. Yeah, because I remember Jaime and how deep he was in a few cervezas.
Oh, yeah.
Jaime was awesome that night.
Jaime was awesome. Yeah. I'm going to pick on Jaime later in the show, too, because oh, God. He was supposed to come on today, and he couldn't because he's on the news shift, but that's all right. We miss him. Everyone misses him. Readers, if you miss Jaime, please leave a comment below. Happens all the time anyway. But the point is, we have a lot of HTC news this week, and I would really, really like it if Nick from HTCSource.com would kick us off with this first one. You want to tell us about the fourth quarter results from HTC's 2013 there, Nick?
Yeah, so HTC posted their fourth quarter results. HTC always does a little bit of a preview earlier, probably about a month before they actually post their real numbers, and they kind of gave us a preview of what they were going to be announcing, but the numbers came in. Essentially, they nearly broke even. Operating profits came in total of $10 million in the black, and people were saying they're going to make a profit, they're going to lose money. Just for reference, HTC posted their first ever loss in Q3 of last year, and the analysts and everyone was expecting that it would maybe be close to another loss for Q4, but they managed to eke it out with $10 million in the pocket, mainly helped by the income that they got from selling off the remaining share of Beats Audio back to Beats.
Thank you for reminding me about that, because that is something we have to keep in mind, that was a big kind of an irregular one-time chunk of change they were able to get in their pocket there. And that $10 million profit is pretty minuscule compared to their revenue, right?
Yeah, so I mean, their revenue is sitting at about $1.4 billion for the quarter. But if you look at the HTC's numbers over the last year and a half, every quarter they've gone down and down and down and down. I mean, they were when they posted profits, I think last year at Q4, they were sitting at about 100 million, I believe, and every quarter it got less and less and less, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, they're going to go bankrupt. Keep things in mind. HTC has a couple $1 billion in the bank, so they could post $10 million profits for here to eternity and become a richer company. Right. So the company's not in jeopardy at all of posting bankrupt. They're not in the same kind of scenario that Motorola's in when Google sold them off, losing $300 million in one quarter. It's night and day difference between a company that's going under and where HTC is. They're not doing well. That's kind of the understatement of the year, but right. There's still hope for them on the financial side. I mean, we would love to see them sell more phones, definitely, but there's still hope.
So what you're telling me is we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and HTC is not going to exist anymore, right? Yeah.
That's what I heard
Totally.
from that. Yeah, HTC goes out of business Friday. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you guys have seen all the comments. You know, you post another story, and you know everybody comments, "Oh my gosh, they're going to go bankrupt. HTC is not going to be here in 2 years." Put it in perspective. If you have a couple $1 billion in the bank, and let's say you lose $100 million every quarter, you can be in business for the next 5 years before you run out of cash. So I mean, just put that in. You can lose $100 million every quarter for the next 5 years before you go bankrupt.
Well, if the shareholders let you get away with that, right? I mean, it's not, you know.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you got to have a body of people willing to put up with losses for a long time, or they'll start pushing for a sale. The activists will get all fed up and they'll say, "Why don't you go ahead and sell to Google?" And then everyone's like, "Oh, no, don't do that." But I mean,
Sony was kind of in the same boat for years. I mean, they were posting losses year over year over year. I think they had about 3 years of losses every single quarter before they started turning things around about a year and a half ago.
This is Sony you're talking about?
Yeah, Sony. I mean, Sony's a lot bigger,
right.
But Sony had years that they were losing $300 million per quarter. Yeah, their cash reserve is definitely was a lot larger than what HTC has, but as a large company, it's easy to operate in the black or in the red for years on end before you actually have to make some significant changes or the talks of sales actually come to fruition.
Now, what do you think? What do we think about the strategy of HTC's that in response to the fact that it has not been doing well financially, the new plan is to focus on mid-range devices? I'm very interested in what you think about this, Nick, because this strikes me as a return to 2 years ago, which is what kicked off this whole horror show in the first place, or 3 years ago, rather.
Yes and no. I mean, if we look back in the devices that HTC created its brand, devices selling with HTC brand on them only about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Before 3 years ago, nobody knew who HTC was. They were an ODM making devices for other manufacturers. They were making devices for T-Mobile, Sprint, all the carriers, and throwing their brand on them. And that's actually what brought HTC to this huge volume of sales. I mean, they were average selling, 16, I think they got up to like 22 million devices per quarter when they were actually selling cheaper devices without their brand. Mm-hmm. And that's when they were making the most profit. Within the last 2 years, they've actually shrunk down the number of devices, saying we're going to focus on a few select devices, create a better brand for ourselves. But they've kind of neglected, the dime a dozen type phone scenario where that's actually the high volume, even though the profit margin
is high volume, but it's right. It doesn't have the profit margins of the high end stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to clear up the timeline a little bit. It was earlier than that. It was more than 3 years ago, because I remember I was still at Sprint. Working at Sprint when we started selling the HTC Touch, the first gen Touch, and that was branded HTC. The Mogul was branded, and that was back in 2008. So I mean, they've
those were branded HTC, but they were a special partnership with all the carriers. The real device that HTC says that they claim is their first device was the HTC Touch, or actually the Touch Diamond.
The Touch Diamond, yes, yeah.
The Touch was actually rebranded with a lot of different names by the different carriers. Verizon, it was different on Verizon and different on the other carriers. So the Touch Diamond, which came out, I think, after the second iPhone, was kind of their first entry into that market segment, trying to push their own brand.
Roger. Okay. All right. But it's
and one thing to keep in mind, I mean, HTC, they have manufacturing capabilities to produce over 30 million phones per quarter. And if they don't produce 30 million phones per quarter, they're essentially losing money because that factory is sitting there.
They're just paying for the assembly facilities. Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And they're not using it. Yeah, so if you're not using it, even if you're using it for low-margin products, you're still using it and you're getting a return out of it, as opposed to just having it sit there and you're paying taxes on it and paying maintenance and all that, and you're not actually using any of it.
But it was widely reported, and I think kind of widely accepted by a lot of people in the redundancy department, that like HTC's problem in 2011 was that it just kind of shot out, 30 different variations on the same kind of mid to high end stuff, and it all started looking the same, and that really, really diluted their brand, and that's what led to the the slimming down of the line in 2012 and 2013, which I think a lot of people thought was the right strategy. But what are your thoughts on that? Because it sounds like we're returning to that strategy, which didn't work out too well for them in the first time around.
I think it's about positioning it differently. Yeah, you're right. You went to a T-Mobile store, you went to a Sprint store, you went to all these different carriers, and they all had essentially the same device, but it looked different. But if you tore it down, the screen was the same, the specs were the same, the software was the same, but they're all designed differently. And T-Mobile had 3 phones, and Sprint had 3 phones, and essentially they had 12 phones on the major 4 carriers, but it was really only 3 phones. But you have to spend the design time and all that on the back end creating these different phones for these different carriers. The one thing that they're losing out on, though...
Let Taylor jump in there.
You want to jump in there?
I was just going to say that's something that never... that's something that never really made sense to me, is in that, they design different phones for each manufacturer, but they also change the specifications a lot of the time. Like one would have, more storage, one would have a better camera, one would have more RAM, and they would just like kind of pick and choose, and it was what the carriers ordered. But to me, that never made sense from a manufacturing standpoint. But that costs so much more money compared to just releasing like the one. And we saw Samsung move away from it too. So I don't see, because it didn't work for them either when they released 9 versions of the Galaxy S2. So I don't see why going back to that same technique, even if you're only slightly changing like one little piece here and one little piece there, because that's a very expensive change on the back end.
So if we look at it a little bit differently, so HTC was creating, a handful of devices and then making modifications on all those devices. But right now you go into a store and, you see the One Max on 3 carriers, you see the One on 4 carriers, and that's essentially all you have. AT&T has the One Mini, and they have an exclusive on that. But you go to all these other carriers, and you see Samsung has the S4, they have the S4 Mini, they have the Mega, they have the Note, and, they might have another one as well. So if someone goes in and says, I don't like the HTC One, and the Max is too big, there's no other HTC options, so they go for a Samsung option. So if they have 3 or 4 options with every carrier, there's the option that somebody says, I don't want this HTC, but I can buy this other HTC. Because as we all know, one phone doesn't fit everybody. And if HTC doesn't have multiple options to choose from, if someone doesn't like their one phone, they don't have another HTC option to look at.
We do have an example of one phone fitting, if not everybody, then a lot of people, right? I mean, Apple did that with the iPhone to various levels of success. I think that was kind of what they were trying to capture, HTC, with the One, and I honestly am still befuddled by the fact that didn't take off to the degree that we all think it should have, I would say.
Well, that phone was flawed in a few ways, specifically the battery life versus the charging time. Mm-hmm. That was the one thing that just turned me away from the phone. Like I would use it, and it would need to be charged around 5 or 6 p.m., which is fine because that's typically what I've come to expect out of everything else. But that phone in particular, when you would drain it to charge it, it charged so slow. Mm. And that just kind of ruined it for me. But, I mean, I think the camera and a lot of different things really ruined it for a lot of people.
I'm not sold on the camera. I understand that it's 4 megapixel and that geeks like us argue about this up and down, but I really don't think that regular people shooting in normal lighting conditions and even low light conditions would hate on that camera. I don't see that it's happened, in like the Radio Shack review comment threads, the places that consumers actually give internet feedback. I don't know. I don't think it's
not that aspect.
Yeah,
that's not the point. I'm not saying like the actual performance of the camera, the actual marketing, the number, the megapixel, what people care about when they go in to buy the phone. Because working in a retail setting for a long time, I know if I had 2 phones and they were almost identical, so we're talking Galaxy S4 and HTC One, and I was like, this one has a 13 megapixel camera and this one has a 4. The one with the 4 is just completely off the table immediately.
Well, yeah,
that's just how it works.
Stuff like that. Like, I mean, why? Rather than qualifying the customer for what he or she is looking for, right? I mean, if I said it's the same as selling a rate plan. It's like,
right.
this plan has 10,000 minutes
saying,
and this one has 400, but it's like, you can use 9,600 of this one only on Saturdays after 11 p.m. It's all positioning, I think.
No, yeah, that's not my market. That's not how I would sell it, but that's what I'm saying. Like, when people see that number, they get, kind of turned away. That's how I always felt, and that's how I would have been as a consumer back then. If I were, less knowledgeable.
Educated, yeah.
Well, and I mentioned this the other day on the Android and Me podcast. I mentioned that I don't want to say that consumers are stupid, but consumers are stupid. They see the number and they see a higher number, and the higher number always means better. They don't take into consideration, hey, one's better in low light, one's not better in low light. That means absolutely nothing to them.
Do you think that's a failure on our part, Nick? I mean, like on the part of the press. Like, do you feel like that should be on us, that we should be educating people better?
No, I think on the side of the press, I think we do a pretty good job of explaining this one is really good in low light, this one's not. It's just how many people actually read our sites. Like, yes, we have great readers. We get millions of page views every month, but how many people are buying phones every month? There's 20, 30 times more people buying phones every month than actually read technology blogs.
Right.
And most people get their reviews of smartphones from CNN, the New York Times, or something like that that's more generic, that says, this is a good camera, this is a bad camera, and they leave it at that. And, a lot of times when you look at some of those major publications, they have people reviewing technology that are, they're pushing towards those major consumers, and they try to stay away from the technical that explains low light versus regular light, outdoor light, or things like that. I mean, a lot of the reviews don't even mention optical image stabilization. And
right.
Honestly, that's one of the selling points of the HTC One. It has amazing optical image stabilization, which some of the other devices that came out last year did not.
You know what's crazy
and it happens on a retail level, too.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You have poorly educated retail employees. I could go on for days.
I know you guys have shared, I know you guys used to work in retail, but like every time I walk into Best Buy, someone comes up and says, can I help you? And so many times I say, no, you cannot help me.
I guarantee
I don't want to be rude, but I know more than you do.
Yeah.
Seriously, walk away from me now.
But I used to love it, though. No, it's funny because I did like the experience of working in retail, because I would occasionally get those people, and I was, not to toot my own horn, but I knew what I was talking about. So people would come in and you'd think I was just another kind of retail, monkey, and I'm like, no, I can clarify some points for you. Just come to me if you need any help, and then I would make friends, and it would be lovely. But let's get back to this Desire 8, or let's get to this Desire 8, because we're still talking. We could talk about the HTC broader strategy until the podcast runs out of time. But I want to know, do we think that this is a good direction to go in? This Desire 8 has been tipped as a mid-range phablet with a 5.5-inch display, probably a 720p resolution, though that's not confirmed. Rumored 13-megapixel standard shooter, not ultra-pixel, 5 megapixels around front, and boom sound. With a plastic casing, it looks like, available in multiple colors. So this is a mid-range phablet. Is there a market for this? Is there enough of a market for this that this particular device could make a dent? Anyone?
Emerging markets maybe, but yeah, it depends heavily on the price. And I know immediately, I think it's a good-looking phone, to be honest. But immediately looking at the status bar, I don't ever want to touch it. I don't ever want my hands to be on it.
Is that because of the Edge icon on
the
there?
Edge and 3G. Like
Edge and 3G at the same time.
No. Please, no. I've been stuck on Boost for a week now, and I've been.
Oh, that's right. What? Yeah, the Boost Max review is coming soon. Go ahead.
It should be a dual SIM device. That's why it's showing.
That's
the
why
Edge
it's showing multiple signal meters there. Okay, so then definitely for Asian markets for elsewhere. But the One Max was built for that same market, to be a sort of pseudo high-end big screen device that's not quite a full-service phablet, but this will fit a cheaper niche. What were you going to say, Nick?
So, the One Max is essentially your, phablet to compete with the Note family of device, high end. It doesn't have the stylus input, and
Yeah, it
I would
doesn't
see
have any
this
good
as,
multitasking either. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but as far as size goes, and general usability of that size, but so this would be more in lines with the Galaxy Mega.
Yeah.
It's a cheaper, large device for people who like my wife. She owns the Note 2, and she uses the Note 2. She's used it since I got it at New York, the unveiling a year and a half ago, and it's one of those things where she loves the phone. She loves the size. She uses it for Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, and she never uses her stylus. So if she would have bought that phone on day one, it would have been $299. Well, she can buy this phone, and if it's $150, she saved herself the money. She still has the same user experience because she didn't use any of those phablet capabilities. I mean,
so
the general consumer doesn't use a lot of those features.
It's a good point, but the question is, would she have bought it? Like, she got it from you because you had a model available to give to her. Would she have bought it if she had walked into the store? Would she even have considered a device that size without using one first? And the reason I'm asking that is do people really buy these in bulk? We know people buy Notes because they have a huge marketing machine behind them and because they're very capable devices. Does anybody buy any of the other large screen devices? Do we have any data on that? On Mega sales, on Max sales, and so on?
I have no idea, but I've never seen them in person.
I mean, I've seen a couple Maxes in person. I've seen the Mega here and there. I saw quite a few of them at CES this year. I was like, why are you using the Mega? There's other better phones.
Yeah, but CES doesn't count, man. You can't.
But I mean,
I saw a lot of Google Glass at CES this year. It's not like...
No, that's ridiculous. But I mean, like if you think of the person who goes to CES, they're always the high-end type thing. So you see the Google Glass because it's super nerdy. So a super nerdy person would not buy the Mega. So I mean, there's a lot of people that were there that are just your general person that has a smartphone, and I saw a handful of them. But once you own a large screen device, and I think a couple of you have mentioned this on podcasts in the past, is going back to a smaller device is really hard.
It is.
So I brought home the One Max to review, and the second my wife saw it, she's like, "Ooh, it's bigger than mine. Do I get to keep this one?" And I was like, "Hell no, I got to give it back because or else HTC is going to charge me $700." But once you're used to that size, you want to stay with it. So I mean, you simply have to find the right consumer to get into that market. And if there's more options for consumers, if they see the Note next to another device, and if they don't use all the features of the Note, and most of the time people don't know half the features of the Note or any of the other devices that they're actually using. I mean, I was actually teaching somebody who owns a Samsung Galaxy S3. She's owned it for over a year, and I told her about NFC. She's like, "Oh, I saw the commercials. I didn't think my phone had that."
Yeah.
So let me send you a picture now, and I can send you all this other stuff. And she's like, "Oh, I'm glad now it's like a new phone." I'm like, "Yeah, congratulations."
That's actually a good point. And I think we talk a lot about the Moto X on this show, and I think a lot of people do. But that's one of the things that the Moto X did really well, where it's like it periodically, not so much that it annoyed you, but every so often it would pop up a notification. It's like, "Hey, did you know that I've got this feature? If you want to set it up now, go for it. If not, that's cool." And then you'd be like, "Oh, yeah. I'm suddenly reminded that this phone can do that." Like, I think that's really, but it is really tricky to walk that line between always bugging you with like, "Want to set this up?" and just doing it really sparingly.
Well, why does it have to be Southern?
It wasn't Southern. It was like sort of semi-deranged professional wrestler. "You want to set this up?"
Why does it have to be a professional wrestler? Jeez, Michael. Buddy, was it Buddy Rose by chance?
I was going to say it was Playboy Buddy Rose. Yeah.
Speaking to that, and I was actually using the Moto X the other day after the software update, and it popped up with the trusted devices stuff. There was a 4.4.2 for the T-Mobile Moto X.
Oh, for the T-Mobile. Oh,
yeah.
Whatever.
See,
Wait, is it? Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm just excited to go back to my Moto X after I'm done with this review. So maybe I'll.
Yeah, I forgot to. I forgot that I had a custom recovery on there. So when I performed the update, it got stuck in a boot loop.
Oh, no.
And it took me 4.5 hours to fix it. But I got it fixed. But what I was going to say is when I booted it up again, the trusted devices notification was there. And just to get it to go away, you have to tap it. And because you can't swipe it away.
Oh, yeah.
So I tapped it. and I was like flicking through the stuff really quickly, and I just glanced and saw that if you swipe the thing to the side, it dismisses everything. How did I not know that? Like in not trusted devices, I'm sorry, active display. Like when it pops up, if you swipe the ring to the side, either side, it dismisses the notifications.
Dismisses
I had no
everything.
idea.
You didn't know that?
I had no
You know
idea.
what? You know who did a great review on the Moto X is that dude Michael Fisher at Pocketnow. He mentioned that in his review. Maybe you should go read it.
I hate that guy.
I
His
don't like him
videos
either.
suck.
Blowhard. Hey, let's stop talking about HTC. I mean, let's stop talking about Moto. Let's get back to HTC because we've got a big block of links in the rundown covering the new 2014 HTC One or the M8 or whatever you want to call it in its various leaked incarnations, and I am really interested in hearing Nick's opinion on the veracity of some of these, particularly. And Taylor, I'll let you ask what you want to ask in a second, but man, I want to know if that dual camera thing on the back is happening because I think that's the ugliest thing I've seen in a year on a phone.
I can't agree with you more. I've been looking at the leaked images of the HTC M8 and looking at the HTC One that I have right here, and it's like, are you taking 17 steps in the wrong direction? Because this thing looks like crap.
Yeah.
So the veracity of the dual camera, I think it's real. I don't think it's. I really hope it's not going to be looking like it's looked in some of the latest leaks. We've seen multiple leaks on highly trusted sources. I think one was on Reuters and a couple other from EvLeaks and something like that, where they're talking about dual sensor cameras. So I think it's there. I don't know what the actual implementation will look like, because what we've seen so far is completely hideous.
What I'm looking at right now is I actually didn't believe it when the first leak dropped, and we talked about this on an earlier episode. It was like a straight-on shot from the back, basically, or it was with a slight down angle, and it looked like someone had just dropped a smaller Photoshopped version of the existing camera above the G-string on the back. And now that I'm looking at it from a different angle from the story on February 9th, this leak from nowhereelse.fr, I mean, it looks real. The sensor is different. It's a smaller sensor up there in that weird alien eyeball. It's a smaller diameter hole, and you can see the glint of the kind of beveling edge, the beveled edge around the lens up there. So it really looks real. And then you've got that multicolored flash down below with the different temperature settings. So, man, it looks so... It's difficult for me to dismiss it. I agree with you, Nick. It looks... I think it's very likely that this is what we're going to see, but, God, it's horrifyingly ugly, isn't it?
If we tie it back to the very first leaked picture of the M8, which came, I think, in late November, which showed a blue back metal casing for the phone, and there was a hole up top. And originally the speculation was that was a fingerprint scanner. Kind of like the One Max. So you'd have the fingerprint scanner up top, which technically your finger would actually be a perfect placement for, and then the camera lens below, and then we get these stories about the second camera. Wow. So, I mean, as far as leaks goes, they've been consistent since the very beginning. The very first one had the second hole. My only concern is maybe what we're seeing are simply prototype phones. If we look back at the leaks of the M7, which was the code name for the HTC One, there were a half dozen to a dozen leaks of a phone that had essentially the same kind of setup of the HTC One, but it was a polycarbonate soft touch black instead of the aluminum body.
So it was like the DNA.
And so it looked very much like the DNA. And so what we could be seeing is HTC simply putting out prototype phones that look very similar to the HTC One because they're used to that production style, and they can just put these out for prototype's sake. And the actual HTC M8, whenever it launches, will have a slightly different design, which might incorporate it a little bit better than what we've seen.
That's a good point. Like, I mean, this could be a casing, a camouflage casing, but how could you make this look better? I think this would be a fun art project for like an elementary school art class or something, or like a high school art class. Like how do you? All right, we need to put these cameras in this position. There needs to be a smaller one above the bottom one. It needs to look like 2/3 of a snowman. Now, how do you put graphical stuff around this to make it more aesthetically pleasing? Go ahead.
A macro photo skin or wrap of a spider's face. That's exactly what you do.
Yes.
You disguise it as a spider's face.
You know what's interesting? You've made me think, Taylor, of those bus wraps, like the ad wraps they put on buses that have the advertisements all around, so that you can't even see the windows of the bus, but people inside the bus
Galaxy
can see
Note
the ad.
Pro.
Yeah, yeah, like the Galaxy Note 8 wrap we saw, or Note Pro wrap we saw. That would be interesting. That would be really, really cool if this secondary sensor, and I want to ask you guys what it's for in a second, but if it could see out, but you wouldn't have to see it from the outside, that would be a very, very cool thing. I don't expect that, but it would be awesome.
Well, I mean, imagine this. Let's say HTC ditches metal altogether and the phone is glass back. Then it doesn't look half bad.
Whoa.
No.
Interesting. So if it's like
you,
dark glass back, like on a Sony device or like an iPhone 4 or something, then the lens is effectively hidden, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating.
That's totally possible. I mean, there's no rumors to say that that's going to happen. But, I mean,
Do they have the
if they
production
choose a
capability
different
for that, though?
material. Who knows? I mean, HTC has production capabilities for pretty much anything. I mean, they've been making phones for everybody under the sun for years. If they've made phones for Palm, they made phones for Sony, they've made phones for pretty much everybody.
Right.
So they know how to do it. I mean, just think of Foxconn, and they can make pretty much anything. They make everything for everybody, and that's essentially where HTC used to be. I mean,
Right.
they were jack of all trades. You need a phone, we'll make it for you.
What do you guys think about the functionality of this dual lens setup? A lot of people are saying it's similar to what Toshiba was doing on a device with dual 5-megapixel cameras to create a single photo with enhanced focusing abilities and kind of a Lytro-like thing. Do you think that's what we're looking at here?
Honestly, I don't think that they're going to go kind of the Lytro route with refocusing or better focus. I think HTC kind of showed that with the HTC One that they're focused on low light and better performance in low light situations. So it could be that we're seeing, maybe an upgraded 5-megapixel ultra pixel camera on the back, and then like the HTC Desire 8, they're talking about a 13-megapixel camera.
Right.
It could be that they're combining simply a regular 13-megapixel camera for everyday shooting, and then another one for the low light situations. My sister actually had a kind of a Nikon point and shoot probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and one of the cool features that phone had was you could set it up and it would take a picture, and then it would take a second picture with a flash. And then when you looked at your pictures, here's the regular one and here's the one with the flash, and you choose which one you want to choose.
Oh, that's
and you might be able to get that situation where you take a picture, it takes two at the same time, and you can choose which one you want, or the phone chooses automatically which one's going to be a better fit, and you go from there. I mean, there's 1,000 different things you could do with a dual camera setup. We've seen people do it before. I mean, HTC's had dual cameras before with the Evo 3D to create 3D pictures. But that was kind of a different situation. So
it was a different situation that I hope we never return to, honestly, until we can actually make it work. Taylor, are you back?
I am. So I think the that website with the leak just absolutely sucked up all my bandwidth.
Yeah,
because I closed the tab and I was perfectly fine.
All right, you're still good. We're still a little broken up, but hopefully we'll deal with it. We've been talking about that dual camera setup still, and I think there's a couple interesting capabilities that it could bring. I just really hope it doesn't look like that, because on the front side of the phone, when you're shooting shots, you're not going to really care, but you don't. The HTC One was not a phone that the aesthetics were ignored on. I mean, we talked a lot about how pretty a device it was and is, and you just don't want to destroy that. But we'll have to wait and see. What do you think about the front here? We've seen a couple different shots of the front of this thing. Almost certainly most or all of them are photoshopped. But we have one from February 11th, which was the convincing look at phone's Face 1. And then we got the more recent real-life photo, quote, unquote, both of which are linked in the rundown. Which of these looks more, like it has more veracity to you, Nick? Because I can tell you which one I like better, but I think that one of these is more likely accurate than the other. So
there's two distinguishing factors between these two pictures. So one of them they're both showing the front of the phone. They're showing front-facing speakers. that are essentially the same. But the key difference is one is showing the HTC logo below the screen, and then the other one is not. And one other factor that I noticed that I don't think anyone else picked up on is there's an edge around the one with the HTC logo. If you look at the device, it looks like it's inside an HTC flip case. But then there's a white edge along the entire side of the phone. So it goes around kind of a lip. And that matches what we originally saw with the very first picture, which just showed the case of the back of the phone, which curved around to the front. So this kind of leads a little bit of credence to that, as the front just sits into the case on the back.
Right, so it's like that soap dish construction that we see on like something more extreme, like the Lumia 520 or something, where the back comes around to the front all the way.
Exactly. The other one, which I would hope is the way HTC is going and not having the logo below the display, has the same chamfered edges as the HTC One. If you look at the edge of the HTC One, the glass goes all the way to the edge of the phone, and it's kind of curved at the edge. And then along the speaker grill, the metal is chamfered. And that's exactly inch for inch the HTC One. So I'm claiming that one as the Photoshop, and the one with the HTC logo below the screen as a real device.
You know, I agree with you. Now, you seem disappointed, and I am not. I kind of like the one with the HTC logo a little bit better for my purposes, just because the edges the corners seem to be wider radius circles, and I always like phones that seem a little more palmable in that regard. But I share your frustration if we lose that beveled edge with the chamfer, which we really liked.
Well, my frustration isn't. I honestly don't care about the edge. I care about that dead space for the HTC logo.
I see.
That's why I like the other picture. The display takes up the entire glass area essentially, with a tiny bezel all around, whereas this one here has about a centimeter of black glass between the screen and the speaker at the bottom.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't like that HTC logo. And actually, Anton commented when posting the second render that it's almost as though someone was listening and removed all of the things that made people annoyed, like the offset speaker up top and the HTC logo down below. So who knows really what's real and what's not. But I don't know. I can't explain it. The one from February 11th with the HTC logo and the soap dish kind of wraparound back just looks like a better shot to me. It's in a case, which would strike me as reasonable for someone carrying a prototype device in public. They want it in a case so that they're not exposing it to everyone. I believe that HTC would do a kind of offset speaker up top because the boom sound speakers only occupy a small portion of those grills anyway.
Yeah, the speakers are actually like two tiny speakers that are like right in the middle or kind of offset depending on the top and the bottom. And yeah, the grill is kind of deceiving. You're like, hey, I have all this speaker space. I'm like, no, not really. You could actually just put two tiny holes in there.
Yeah, which is what we're seeing on the Desire 8 render, that they're smaller holes. And
yeah, exactly.
And then what did we see it on the 8 XT, right? The Windows Phone that had the smaller boom sound ports. Let's see if Taylor's back on the channel. I wonder how he's doing now. Taylor?
I ran an Ethernet cable all the way across my apartment. So
that was the thing to do, Taylor. You did right.
Yeah. Well, it reaches by like 2 inches.
Okay.
So
well, before we get off the HTC device conversation and move into the final bit of HTC news, man, we haven't had an HTC-centric podcast in a while. This has been fun. I'm so tired of talking about the Galaxy S5 rumored specs and such. The HTC M8 Mini, which who knows what the final branding is going to be, looks like it's not going to be the sort of spec fail that the One Mini was. Nick, why do I think that you carry a One Mini for some reason? Am I wrong on that?
You are completely wrong on that. I wish I was carrying the One Mini. 2 factors.
What do you carry? What are you talking to us on now? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you talking to us on a One or what?
I'm talking to you on a One. 2 factors that keep me away from the One Mini: specs, and well, the specs weren't that bad, but I need something for better gaming, because I love my gaming on my mobile device. But also size. The One Mini name was completely deceiving. The screen is a lot minier, but the phone itself was almost the same size as the HTC One. The bezel around the screen actually grew by like 6 millimeters.
And you got the wonderful bonus of that plastic rub rail around the side, so that it just looked worse.
Could you make this phone any bigger? Because it's almost as big as the One Max.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But with the story about the One Mini, like it's looking better. It does have a Snapdragon 400, according to these rumors, of the M8 Mini. But it's the newer quad-core
one. Yeah, the one that's performed very well in the Moto G.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a slightly different one than what's on the Moto G. I think or at least it's clocked differently, because the Moto G one is clocked a little bit lower.
Okay.
But this is supposed to have this is supposed to have a much better camera. It's not going to have the ultra pixel camera. It looks like it's going to have a 13 megapixel camera.
Yeah, and I believe the same 13 and 5 megapixel pair as on the Desire 8 rumors.
Yeah. So I don't know. It depends on price, and honestly, it depends. For me, it comes down to, is it really mini? Yeah. It needs to be significantly smaller than the HTC M8. It's 4.5 inches versus rumored 5 inches. There should be a significant difference there. You need to be able to distinguish the phones. You've played with the Xperia Z1 S and the Z1 Compact.
Actually, yeah, I was about to bring that up. It's a huge difference.
They're significantly different.
Yeah, the specs are not different. I mean, like, with the exception of the screen. I mean, you're talking about the same guts essentially, and boy, it's wonderful to have that kind of horsepower in an actual small, palmable casing.
And that's where my disappointment with the M8 Mini comes in. Is they made it a mini like last year, and they didn't take advice from Sony and make it a compact.
Yeah, well, it would have been too late to take Sony's example on that, because this thing would have been at the end of the design process already, probably. But they more pressingly, I think they did not take the advice of everyone who's ever been talking about miniature phones for the past 2 years. We've all been saying this, right? We've all been saying, give us a smaller device that has the same horsepower. Don't make small device synonymous with crappy device.
Yep.
But no one has listened except for Sony and, to be honest, BlackBerry, because the Q10 has the same guts as the Z10. It just has a smaller screen and a physical keyboard. So,
but let's
be honest. Does it matter what BlackBerry does?
No hating on the underdog.
You are just a fanboy of underdogs.
They're the colossal giant that took a nosedive.
They are.
Can't get up.
But now they're the underdog. That's what you magically transmogrify into the underdog when that happens. You shed your poor leadership and things.
When you make a series of horrible mistakes over the course of 4 years, and that magically makes you an underdog.
No. You come out the other side as the underdog when all of a sudden you've ditched all the friends that gave you the poor advice to begin with. It's like being a teenager and then becoming a 20-something who still makes awful mistakes. You just get another chance to make awful mistakes. That's all.
It's like being Nokia.
I am so confused. I'm sitting here beside a window, and there's this woman. She's now walking 2 dogs, but she just walked out into the middle of nowhere and only had 1 dog, and turned around, and now she's walking back with 2.
The Dog Report from Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you for tuning in. Dog Matters.
I'm just amazed by that. She just pulled a dog out of the snow.
Thank you. All of us are now confused and bored along with you. I appreciate that. Thank you for looping us in. HTC and Nokia sign a patent collaboration agreement. I like this piece of news because I'm so tired not only of patent fights in general, but also specifically of this patent fight because it resulted in the dumbing down of the HTC One. Nick, will you confirm for me my thinking on this? Once Nokia sued HTC for using their hardware audio component in the 3D audio or whatever the hell it was for the HTC One, HTC was forced to make another batch of HTC One devices that did not incorporate that component. Is that right?
Well, they lost the battle, yes. The issue is Nokia partnered with a microphone manufacturer to create this, and they have a joint patent, and Nokia had a limited time license on the microphone. which meant Nokia would be the only one who would be able to use that microphone. That manufacturer somehow forgot about this agreement with Nokia and sold the microphones to HTC. So HTC is not the culprit in this. It's the manufacturer who said, hey, I'm going to sell this to HTC. The court said HTC could use up their remaining supply of the microphone. And that is it, because it wasn't HTC's fault. And that's that. I think Nokia's supply or limited agreement with the manufacturer actually expires at the end of 2014. So anybody in the world is going to be able to use the wonderful noise cancellation microphones in the HTC One.
That thing is incredible.
If you use these microphones, like I went to I was at a couple shows at CES. Lenovo had a concert at one of their shows one of the nights, and music was blaring and everyone else was recording with their Samsung Galaxy S phones and whatever. And they're playing it back and all you hear is I play it back on my HTC One and you can hear everything crystal clear. And it only comes into play in certain situations, but when you're in those situations, that's when you want to.
When you're on a phone call, even. I mean, like the noise cancellation on a phone call on the HTC One for me, I have almost never had a better call than I've had on the HTC One as far as voice quality goes. And the only thing that's outdone it is Motorola. And Motorola's, of course they did, because that's what they do. But, man.
Well, and hopefully Nokia phones as well, because they own this technology. I don't think they've been using it that much.
That's the thing. I don't know if they use it consistently, and also you have to deal with. I mean, Nokia phones are completely different structurally speaking. You know what I mean? We're dealing with a polycarbonate shell. The audio transmission qualities are different. They place their noise canceling mics at different parts of the body. And also, I'm sure they're using different software. And also, if you're Taylor Martin, you're always like sticking a pin in your noise-canceling microphone to destroy it because you think it's the SIM ejector, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's that's the only logical thing to do.
That's the problem. No, but really,
poking holes in the microphone.
It made me so sad to learn when we got the One Max review units that they didn't have the Crystal Talk, or no, that's Motorola. They didn't have the Sense Voice noise reduction, and that's when we learned about this whole microphone thing, or that's when I did, and I was like, oh, God. So I'm very happy to get the inside scoop on that. Thank you. You don't know who the microphone manufacturer is, Nick?
I'm not off the top of my head, no. Okay. I mean, I think if you go back to some of the original stories from last fall when, the German courts ruled that, HTC had to stop using them once they ran out of the supply, it's listed in there. But, I mean, it's just, just a random small company that does, they specialize in microphones and stuff like that.
Wow. According to this press release, hopefully we will have not as many of these incidents in the future. We have HTC agreeing to make payments for the usage of Nokia's patents, and in return, Nokia is going to license some of HTC's LTE patents. So this is great news. I love this. Fewer patent wars mean fewer boring news stories and better devices all around.
And more stock photos of people shaking hands.
That's right. Right, more stock photos of handshakes.
I hate those pictures. The one thing that there was some specific wording in the joint press release with Nokia and HTC, and HTC is going to be paying to use Nokia's patents, and then the wording kind of was that HTC will be bringing to the table its LTE patents, which made it sound, and there was another sentence in there, which made it sound that Nokia will be able to license HTC's LTE patents to other manufacturers. So it's like they're giving up it sounds like they're giving up some of the rights to some of their LTE patents in order to kind of make a fairer deal between them so that HTC doesn't have to pay as much money. I don't know.
Interesting.
But that'd be interesting if HTC is giving up some of their rights to the patents. Because, I mean, if you think back, HTC was the first manufacturer to launch LTE smartphones on all the major U.S. carriers in the U.S. and also in Europe. So they're a huge player with LTE patents because they've essentially helped create the standards there for smartphones.
Right. And
it says HTC will make payments to Nokia, and the collaboration will involve HTC's LTE patent portfolio, further strengthening Nokia's licensing offering. So that's what it sounds like. Otherwise, it wouldn't have included, strengthening Nokia's licensing. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of tricky there with the wording, but I think that's what it means is Nokia gets rights to license out those patents and, make some money in return from them.
Well, I predict that we will hear a lot more news from HTC in the next 2 weeks because we have a device launch invitation going out soon, according to everyone. So hopefully we will be able to talk more about it. I think to close out the category, we need to make the point that if you still want to buy an HTC One, you can, obviously, and you can now have a more colorful one with these really, really heinous-looking double-dip covers. I want to know. I don't think they look very good. What, Nick, are you using one? Did I just insult you? What's happening?
I actually have the original double-dip case. It's red, off-white, and gray, which I think is a good color for it.
Yeah,
I like
it's actually
that one.
a really good case.
It's just my thing with cases, man. I mean, like, I hate it when you put a case on a good-looking phone, and the HTC One is one of the best-looking phones ever. And this case, it doesn't matter how good it looks, and it doesn't look good. It's just awful. I don't know. Do you use it every day, Nick? Do you use it to protect your investment?
No. Okay. As you said, I love the look of devices. I usually only stick it on my phone when I know I'm going out on a trip, or I know I'm going to need extra protection on a device where I might drop it more or bang it up.
Sure.
But yeah, usually my devices are all naked.
In other words,
I
trips to the bar.
Trips
Trips to the bar.
I have 2 little kids, so it's whenever I know I'm going to be handing my phone off to my kids for a little bit of time. So
I understand. Well, they've revamped the double dip cases to allow for enhanced customizability. If you want to be like Stephen Schenk, he whipped up some really, really gross looking demo colors. The headline image is nice, but if you go down into the post, is oh man, these things look like awful sherbet ice cream flavors. But I like this. Do you guys?
I did order mine this morning.
You did? You ordered a custom colored one?
Yeah, I ordered a custom colored one.
Really? What colors did you get?
Let me go back here because I honestly can't. It took me like 35 minutes to decide which one I wanted, and now I can't even remember what it is.
It's like Taylor and me having our Moto Maker conversation.
Yeah.
Because this is like, it's right in the headline here. I mean, like, Stephen, HTC apes the Moto Maker impression. I don't know. We saw HTC try to do this before. Which one?
I think this is a dry run. I mean, the HTC One is a year old at this point.
Yeah.
I think the double dip case is going to come back with the M8, and they want this. They're trying to work out the kinks for the launch of the M8 so that they have this available, accessories or, customizable accessories for the M8 at launch. Because I mean, yeah, they make good profit off of selling a phone, but profit margins off of accessories are completely insane. Like this costs $30. It costs $30. This costs 5 cents to make.
Yeah.
I mean, that's $29 profit off of some colored plastic.
So that makes it less. I don't know. That seems to me to make it less likely that they will do what I was just about to suggest, which is that they'll launch the M8 in customizable color schemes like the Moto X. And I don't say that just out of left field. I mean, we saw that HTC was going to do this with the 8XT for Windows Phone. They were going to have a Moto Maker like website where you could design your own phone and your own colors, your own materials, whatever, and have it shipped to you, your custom build. But they canceled it at the last moment, so we got this two-tone blue thing. But we don't think that they're going to bring that to bear with the M8?
Well, I think with the M8, if it is the unibodied aluminum design, we saw rumors, not rumors, there was a couple tweets by some people that are close to HTC that said the HTC is going to launch in 4 colors, or the M8 is going to be available in 4 colors at launch. If you remember last year, it was available in 2. It was the dark gray and the silver, and then they added multiple blues, a red, and the gold eventually. So, I mean, it is available in lots of colors. It's not the Moto Maker type experience where you get to pick and choose. I mean, what if, it has the the plastic dividers between the top and the bottom? What if you can get different tones for the different areas?
If you could get those
that would be
different
hideous.
accent colors. No, I think it would be good looking if you pick the right ones. When they changed those to black,
Red, white, and blue
on the goal, patriotism.
American.
You
So
realize
I
you
got
just said American and not America?
I said America.
American. Go ahead.
I got the top neon lemon, base plate of blue, and then the bottom plate of navy blazer. I wanted something that would stand out but not look hideous. I think it looks okay.
I think you got it at least 50% right.
Yeah.
Hey man, please share a picture so we can post that because I'm looking forward.
Well,
to seeing
and then I already have my original HTC double dip case, so I have the tops and the bottoms in the middle to mix and match now. So I have multiple color variations.
You got all kinds of options there.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they'd limit this to just 6 colors. Like 6 pastel colors. Well, navy's not pastel. But.
Yeah, well, they're sort of pastel, aren't they? Like these would not be out of place in the Florida Keys, I feel like.
They would match my my Hawaiian shirt, a little button down.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we? Yeah, Nick, let's make that point. Then let's wrap up with HTC here.
To Taylor's point of why the color selection, I think you got to start somewhere. And if this is a testing ground for what we're going to see with the M8, let's see what colors work, let's see what colors don't, and go from there. And then we have a better option for when the M8 comes to market.
And just there are no solid saturated colors, and that just irks me. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have a whole lot more HTC news to discuss in the coming weeks, I'm sure, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the M8. If there's a launch event in New York, Nick, do you think you'd come out for that one?
I will definitely be at the New York event if that's where it is.
Yeah, I'm just guessing. I don't know, but that's where it was last year.
I write for Android and Me and HTCSource, and if Android and Me is not willing to pay for me to go, I will be footing it out of my own pocket and paying for the trip. So.
Roger. Well, I certainly hope that Android and Me sends you, and I will look forward to seeing you because hopefully I'll make it. Barring any difficulties or barring it being situated in Utah, I will be there. So
I don't think they'll be launching anything in Utah anytime soon.
You never know. They got some great convention centers out there. LG announces the G Pro 2 phablet. Taylor Martin, I know you care about this.
What? Were you talking to me? Yes.
Because you reviewed
paper.
the G Pro, and you actually didn't mind the thing, as I recall.
Yeah, sort of. I hate what LG does every single time, and it's along the lines of what Samsung does. Super cheap filling plastic devices. I just can't get into them.
I'm with you.
Yep. And it just, for whatever reason, when you make a phone and it's a $700 phone, and the materials on the outside that it's made out of it costs 3 cents to make. I can't get down with that. And this looks to be maybe a little different. It looks like it might be a matte finish, unibody.
Yeah, it's not reflecting the white,
like
the photo box of the 3D computer-generated render environment as a glossy paint would. It looks like a matte finish almost.
And it doesn't. I'm crazy. I might sound crazy in this, but it looks like the Nexus 4. Look at the
look at the earpiece and the way the top and bottom curve. The Nexus 5, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But the specs look fantastic. The display might be a little on the large side. It's 5.9 inches, full HD IPS plus display. That's 1080p. Slim bezel. That's one thing LG is very notorious for. That's a screen-to-frame ratio of 77.2. But you also have a Snapdragon 800, 2.2 gigahertz, 2.26 gigahertz clock speed, 3 gigs of RAM, 16 or 32 gigabytes of storage, and a 13 megapixel optically image stabilized. I can't even talk right now.
Optically image stabilized.
Optically image stabilized. I'd say it again. OIS camera.
There you go.
OIS camera. OIS. We're just going to keep it simple. And a 3,200 milliamp hour battery, which means that it's Basically, it has the one thing that we
the
felt.
G-Flex.
Yeah, it shy of.
Yeah, the G-Flex is 3500.
Oh no! I'm saying like it actually has the one thing that we wish the Note 3 had, and that's OIS.
True, and not to
Optical
mention,
image stabilization.
that's the usual spec dump, right? That's the stuff that everybody gets excited about, and yes, it's cool and whatever, blah, blah, blah. What I'm jazzed about, in addition to the brushed metal detail on the back buttons, which I think looks really good,
But there's still back buttons.
No, but there's, exactly, there's still back buttons, and I think the back buttons are important for LG because it is a standout. You might love them or hate them, but the back buttons do two things. One, they make the device stand out from the rest of the competition. 1.5, so I actually have 3 points. So 1.5, they're not stupid side buttons because they looked horrible on the G Pro, and they just made the G Pro look like every other crappy Me Too phablet. And my second point is, what is my second point? Oh, it re-emphasizes the knock-on. So you get that awesome double tap to unlock on the screen, and it's not just double tap. You can choose a security pattern if you want. It looks like you can use one of 86,000 knock combinations to unlock the thing. So that's awesome to me. I think all that is really, really great, assuming knock on works well, which it didn't on the first G2. But go ahead, Nick.
I was never a fan of the back buttons, the concept of it, until I actually played with it, and then I actually really liked it.
Yeah.
I just don't like how it looks. If they could come up with a different design to incorporate it into the back of the device to make it look different, I honestly, I look at it and I'm like, so they just took some buttons and threw them on the back and they stuck, so they left them there. And that's kind of how I feel like it looks.
Really?
It doesn't look like they actually took some time.
Great.
To
Now, what do you think?
I don't
about
like back buttons.
What do you think about the use of the LED illuminator behind the primary button there?
I love the LED illuminator on the back.
Me
like
too.
Every phone should have an LED on the back.
I agree.
Except
the
for,
DNA was great for that. Like that was my favorite thing with the whole entire DNA.
With the DNA, it was just the little pinprick holes and the little stupid low light flashing LED back there. Like with the G Flex and presumably with this thing, like the big old pulsating strobe. The one problem is, though, I will raise this, guys, and tell me if you think I'm crazy. LEDs can get a little annoying if you get a lot of notifications, and turning over your phone was previously like a refuge from that, and now you can't do that.
I was just going to say that. I mean, you had the Xperia Z1S.
Yep.
I have it right now, and the LED on the front of that phone is ridiculous.
It's super bright, yeah.
Like when the phone is charging at night, I have to turn my phone over because it illuminates the ceiling of my bedroom. Like you can see, like it's glowing. It's ridiculous. And my wife wakes up in the middle of the night. She's like, "I thought there was a fire truck outside because the blue LED was flashing because I had an email." She's like, "I thought the police were outside or something." I was like, "No, it's my phone." And I have to make sure I turn it over every single night. It's blinding. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
See, the thing for me, I don't ever put my phones face down because they always seem to scratch when I do that. So I stopped that a long time ago.
So you leave it face up, and then the front side LED flashes.
Yeah.
So you can't get away from the LED is my point. But I don't know. I see, Nick, I disagree. I think the back buttons look good. I don't know. This is an aesthetic. This is a question of preference. Nobody's right, but I think they look really good
right.
integrated with the camera lens there.
Dude, I'm totally right. You're wrong.
I'm right.
Yeah.
But let's not leave this by the wayside. In addition to the usual, all that NFC, Bluetooth, we've got a speakerphone on the back that is marketed to be 30% louder than its predecessor, with more sound, clearer sound rather, and more bass. And it's apparently a 1-watt hi-fi speakerphone. That sounds amazing. Because if there's one thing that phone manufacturers always kind of toss off to the side and they don't really care is the speakerphone, unless you're HTC or Motorola, really. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but
this actually has a woofer in it.
Wait. No, I thought you were serious for a second. I was like, did they miniaturize a subwoofer?
Because HTC's had amps in their phones for a while, I think over a year now, and the one has an amp for the speakerphone as well, and I think it's a 15-watt amp. So a 1 watt versus
really?
a 15. I think so. I thought that's what it was. I mean, if comparing watts to 1 watt, 15 watts versus whatever wattage you have in your car amp, that's 200 watts. There's a clear distinction there.
Right.
But I thought the HTC's wattage for their amp was 15. I could be mistaken. But if that's the case, there's a huge disparity there between a 1 watt amp and, 15.
That's interesting.
But I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
1 amp. I think it's 1 amp. Yeah.
Wait, 1 amp on this G Pro or on the
HTC One. HTC One charged at only 1 amp. Nope, that's charging.
No, that's charging. Yeah.
Yep.
Your Google skills fail you.
Yes, they do. Well,
in any case, I started this segment not caring about the G Pro 2. I didn't even want to put it in here because I found the G Pro 1 just hilariously bad. I've never even held one, don't get me wrong. My opinion is completely worthless for evaluating whether to buy it, which is why Taylor reviewed it. But I just never liked it. And the G Pro 2 really looks like it has some compelling stuff that I think I could get into. So, except I would get the G Flex anyway because it's the same size and I like the curved screen. But we've talked about all this.
Yeah, I can send that back to you. I don't want to. You know what I've been sitting here looking at this entire time?
What?
I've been on Google Play or play.google.com looking at the Xperia Z, or not the Xperia, but the Z Ultra.
Yeah.
I don't even know why. Like, I hated that phone.
You're weird. Yeah, you talk about how you don't like it, and now you're just.
But now I'm like sitting here staring at it, like trying not to click add to cart. I don't even know why.
You're a strange
I don't even
person.
know why.
You're a bizarre person. I don't know.
I am.
Nick, do you have the Z1S because you are reviewing it, or what's your deal?
Yeah, I'm reviewing it. I've been sitting on my review for like a week and haven't finished it yet.
I gotcha. Yeah.
I like the phone. There's some things that I don't like that I think would turn a lot of people off to it. So
well, when your Z1S review goes up, let me know, because my Z1 Compact review is going to go up tonight, and it'll be interesting to compare notes on our Sony experiences.
Yeah, I love the fact that you can take it underwater. My daughter's birthday was a week and a half ago, and so we went to an indoor pool and got to take the phone around and take pictures under the water and video and stuff, and that was freaking awesome.
It's an amazing camera underwater.
Well, and typically you take your phone to the beach or to the pool and you put it in a Ziploc bag and you put it inside a bag underneath your towel, and you want to make sure that it never gets damp or moist or anything like that. And I was like, screw it. I took it out and I threw it into the pool, and I was like, go get it, girl.
Yeah. Oh,
everyone was looking at me. Oh my gosh, he threw his phone in the pool.
Now, you want to be careful about that because I don't know if you saw
heard what happened to yours.
Yeah, it was not a very good time. That door, those doors pop open with little to no warning. But I had a similar experience with the Galaxy S4 Active last summer when I brought that to the beach, and I was accompanied by like 9 friends, and we're all just being stupid in the water. I'm like, I'm going to take pictures of all this, and then I did, and it was freaking wonderful. I love phones that can do that. I love phones that you can take anywhere and that don't demand that you carry around a brick, or put it in a stupid case.
Exactly.
I was taking underwater photos with the Z1 Compact here yesterday, and it was just so much fun. God, it takes good pictures.
I think that what the ultimate test is taking it down a water slide.
Yes.
You see some, like GoPro videos of on the water slide or something.
Yeah,
you need to go to a water slide and go down a water slide with it.
This is why we should only review waterproof phones in the summertime, because you just said that,
exactly.
And now I'm even more depressed that it's the friggin' winter and the snow is coming down.
Don't you guys we have some indoor water parks here. So, like, next to Mall of America, there's the Water Park of America connected to a hotel, and they've got a 10-story indoor water slide.
Nick,
I should go there.
It sounds like you should go there and stop reminding me that I don't live there.
We have
warmer.
several water parks here, but they're outdoors, like giant. We have Carowinds, and then Carowinds itself has a water park.
Be specific about this. We need to know all this.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. You got them in the South, too. I know you hate the South, Michael.
I love the South. I'm just tired of it. It's not that I don't like it. Hey, the G2 Mini looks like it could be tiny. Would you guys get it?
No, but LG's funny because of their definition of mini. This thing has a 4.7-inch display. That's since when is that mini?
Well, some people would consider the Moto X mini.
The iPhone is mini.
And if it used all of its footprint, it would have a 4.7-inch display.
It's mini compared to the 5.2-inch of the G2.
Way mini. And this photo can't be to scale, though, because it looks tiny.
Yeah.
So that's a half an inch difference. So if the M8 Mini is a 4.5 inch and the M8 is a 5 inch, that's still a half inch difference.
True.
So
what was the relationship between
the scale?
It was 4.7 and 4.3 for the HTC One and the One Mini, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's a 0.4 inch difference, right? So it's, I don't know. You can kind of do anything. Like it's. I just kind of find myself hoping that someone goes true mini with this, because if this photo is indeed to scale, the one that LG is showing here, that would be a very, very pocketable phone.
It would make sense from LG, considering how obsessed they are with screen to bezel ratios.
Yes, absolutely. And
but if that has on-screen buttons as well, that could be, on such a small screen, on-screen buttons are kind of iffy.
So to put it in perspective, the HTC One Mini was larger than the Moto X. So if LG could squeeze in a 4.7-inch display into a phone that's smaller than the Moto X, I think they win.
With a Snapdragon 800.
That Snap 8.
Exactly.
Yeah, driving a smaller display, and then you'd have a Z1 compact experience where it's like, wow, this thing is speedy under every possible condition. This is awesome.
Is the Z1 compact smaller than the Moto X?
Yes.
I haven't compared the size.
Actually, in real life, it's about the same size. It feels a little bigger because it's not rounded, though. The Moto X is still the more comfortable device to hold in the hand, I think. And as a bonus, it won't shatter if you drop it on its back. But, yeah. What am I saying? We need to close out Android because this has been the longest Android category in history, and we still have quite a bit of news in the other categories, which will please those of our listeners who listen to us on 6-hour-long road trips and such. Let's talk about, briefly, the Nokia X, a.k.a. the Nokia Normandy, a.k.a. the product that exists, and I don't know why. Anyone, please educate me as to why this thing exists other than to replace Asha phones for as much time as it takes for Nokia to acquire the company and then torpedo the whole thing.
Your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea.
You also do not know. I think Nick is a good thinker, and I think he will have something interesting to say about this.
I think this actually ties in with, the next item on the lineup that goes to Windows Phone.
Yes, it's a magical segue between topics.
Microsoft looking to bring Android apps to Windows Phone. So this could actually be kind of their foot in the door. So you have the Asha replacement with this device. It's running Android. They can create their own Android app store and give developers their requirements for these Android apps, kind of like what Amazon does with their own app store. And then those requirements will fit in perfectly if Microsoft actually wants to bring those apps to Windows Phone as well. It would be a seamless integration. This actually gives them one foot into the Android world, but pulls in those developers into the Windows Phone world with their Android apps.
That would be a crazy long game. I mean, I think it makes sense, but it sounds like it sounds like it comes from the world of conspiracy theories to me.
It totally does. But if they're making special modifications to the apps that would enable better Android emulation on Windows Phone, it wouldn't be a long game. It would be add this extra code to your Android app, and whenever they flip the switch to enable those apps on Windows Phone, it would be a seamless integration. I mean, this could be with Windows Phone 9, which is rumored for 12 to 18 months out.
Here's my problem with that. So that would solve the issue of the app situation on Windows Phone, right?
Well, sort of.
Well, yeah, like the same way it does for BlackBerry.
Say not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. But it would also sort of encourage Android developers who are not already developing for Windows Phone to not develop specifically for Windows Phone.
All right. So let's hold it. But before we you keep going with your point, but before we go forward, we have to do the bong bong. So yes, we're talking Windows stuff now. There we go.
Yay for order.
Go ahead, continue.
But to me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense, because where does Microsoft gain much of anything from it? So the user experience would probably be just bottom of the bucket, because these apps weren't developed for Windows Phone. So, and in turn, they're encouraging developers to not fully support Windows Phone, but just kind of sort of, so their apps will kind of sort of work on the platform. Like it's a half step, and I don't like it. And it's a half step in the wrong direction.
And we saw what this did on BlackBerry. Now, I think BlackBerry is the best example of a platform that implemented this run Android apps on our platform promise, because they did it fairly well. They started out with a fairly recent version of Android. You had ice cream sandwich capable apps pretty early in the thing with the runtime, and then they updated within a reasonable time to allow Jelly Bean apps, and I've run some of them on the Q10. But the thing is, it's still not a great experience. You launch into the app, and even if you don't pay attention to aesthetics terribly closely in software, your brain knows that something's wrong because the app no longer obeys the rules of the software that you came from, which is the BlackBerry stuff, right? Your back buttons are moved and all that kind of stuff, which is another reason, which is why like straight up ports of iOS apps into, I think it was Android back in the day, like developers would just create like a mirror Android version of the iOS app. And it's like, wow, this sucks too. No, you have to code for your specific platform. And I think Windows Phone is far enough along that, yes, it's significantly smaller. Yes, I'm still frustrated occasionally by the fact that I can't find an app for my 1020 that I have on my Android phones. But it's much more mature than, I don't think it needs this crutch. I really don't think that, and I don't think Microsoft has enough incentive to do it. I think they're much too prideful. And I think they rightly assume they don't have to do this.
It shows weakness.
If you think about it, from the other side, though, let's say an Android developer doesn't want to spend the money to create a whole new application, but what if you could get a mirror? The BlackBerry scenario was mismanaged completely. I think we all agree on that. It wasn't a good situation. But if Microsoft put in clear standards with their Asha phone replacements and said, if you want to get into our Android market, this is what your apps need to look like. Amazon's done this with their app store for a lot of the most successful. Like if you look at Evernote on the Android app store, it looks different than the Evernote that's in the Google Play. The experience is different.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the experience is different because Amazon said this is how you use it. These are our on-screen buttons. This is where your menu should be, stuff like that. And so it's still Android, but it's slightly different. And if they could do that with Windows Phone and say, these are the aesthetics that we'd like you to do. You can keep all your functionality, but move your menu button here, make this look like this, and we'll approve you. BlackBerry didn't have any standards. They simply said, go make it. And if Microsoft has some standards to allow these apps to come in, let's say Instagram could say, hey, we have an Instagram app. We're going to port it over to Microsoft's Android standards. All the baseline code is the same. We just have to tweak the UI a little bit. That's a month's worth of work versus 6 months worth of work. And Microsoft gains on the back end because it's their own app store. They can make the profits off of it. Honestly, they probably don't care if they're using Microsoft code or Google's code. If they can make a profit off of it, they can make a profit. It doesn't matter in the end.
Well, I don't know. Isn't that kind of short-term thinking, though? I mean, like I think that Microsoft is at a place where their identity is really quite threatened, or not their identity, but their future in mobile is by no means certain. I mean, they keep throwing products out there. They keep throwing money at the problem. And yes, we're starting to see some growth, but not at the rate I think they want. And now
or that we've seen from other platforms in the past.
Yeah, that's the more important observation. So,
one question I have with BlackBerry, were there any major developers that took their Android apps and ported them as Android apps to the BlackBerry platform?
What do you mean? Like that ported them to BB10 or?
Did they port them as Android apps to the BB10?
Well, you can run pretty much any Android app in the BB10 runtime.
You can just
was there any developer that did that on their own? Or did they make BB10 specific apps? Because, I mean, everything that was side-loaded was essentially, it worked, but it was hacked on, essentially. I don't think if there was any major developer that took some time to optimize their app and then pushed it through that process.
Oh, I actually don't know that. I only had experience running BB10 native apps, and they had a handful of those, and then whatever the side-loaded ones were. I think running Instagram was interesting on that screen, but yeah,
Yeah, no protocols worked. Could you, with the Instagram, could you even load the camera app when you clicked on the camera?
No, actually, it worked. It worked seamlessly. In that case, it was just a problem with the screen size, because the screen is 720 by 720. So like to see a photo, I could see like most of a photo on the screen, but I couldn't see all of it. It was really
because you have the navigation buttons at the bottom for the app. Yeah,
yeah.
The same way it was the same thing with Twitter. Like you could load a Twitter client on there. I think I put Plume on the Q10, and you could see like 1 or 2 tweets at a time.
Yeah,
and you had to scroll, and some tweets you couldn't see full, like the whole tweet. I mean, it was just bad.
Every time I still haven't put the Q10 away. I've got all these devices in boxes. The Q10 is still on a desk. Every time I pass it, I'm like, I want to use you.
You're so weird.
I am weird. Let's stay in Windows. So we may see the Normandy in 2 weeks at Mobile World Congress, depending on what rumor you believe. We also may not. We'll see what happens. Everyone else got to see a device this week. Yay!
Yay!
We had a problem.
Yay.
Nokia shipped out some awesome boxes. They are like Pelican cases, and they're super rugged and robust. And when you open them up, they have a case lighting in them that like illuminates this crazy red side lighting. And then there's the device in this industrial foam, and I think some headphones too, some crazy Nokia headphones. And everyone else like unboxed them. Some outlets posted reviews after what I think was probably only a 2-day review period, which is very funny. But maybe it was longer. If it was longer, then I take back my snark. But I think it was 2 days. And,
yes.
Yeah. And so that's some BS. We would have at least had an unboxing up, though. But unfortunately, Winter Storm, Shaka Khan, or whatever they're calling it, really ruined our plans. PAX? They named a Winter Storm PAX?
That's what I thought. I think it's Winter Storm PAX.
Pax Dickinson? No.
PAX.
That's interesting. All right, so anyway, the Winter Storm screwed us up. So, Taylor, you still don't have the Nokia Lumia icon, do you?
I do not.
Makes me really sad.
So there was a logistical issue.
Yeah, but then there was the Winter Storm on top of that.
There was a logistical issue, and then PAX happened, and I am now sitting under, 8-10 inches of snow. Mm-hmm. It's been snowing for the last probably 30 hours, and no icon. No icon.
We wanted to. So normally when this happens, if we miss out on a device, it's because we were second wave or third wave and we didn't get the first pass, or we just weren't contacted at all sometimes, or sometimes whatever. So this is normally where that explanation would come out. But really, no, we could have had it on time, and unfortunately we didn't because of the weather, mostly the weather, but secondarily because of a shipping problem. So we just wanted to let you know, everyone asking on Twitter if we're going to get the icon. We hear you, and we really want it, and we will have it soon. It's on a truck. It's on its way to us. And we hope it gets here soon. But when it arrives, it won't have the new version of Windows Phone on it because it's still in beta, but the SDK has unveiled some of its secrets, or they've broken cover from Windows Phone Blue, and it looks like a notification center is coming to us, which is a surprise to absolutely no one. But I want to hear what you guys think about this notification center. Taylor, since you are very conscious of the time, why don't you talk about it?
And just paying attention to all the things.
I'm seeing the counter, man. I'm seeing it.
I'd actually just opened this just now. I looked at it earlier and skimmed over it, of course. But it looks, I looked at it a few minutes ago, it just kind of looks, it's necessary. It's needed on Windows Phone. Like, that's one of the biggest problems I have with that operating system is the lack of a decent notification thing.
It's kind of like you move into a really nice apartment that doesn't have a kitchen, right? And then, like, about a year later, they finally get around, the contractors come in, they build a kitchen for you. And kind of, even though it's a generic one and you don't necessarily really like the look of it, you are so desperate for a kitchen that you'll take anything. And you'll just be like, thank you so much. I'll pay you hundreds of dollars.
For one, it looks... Oh,
what?
Go ahead.
My analogy is going to be it's you move into a house that has no cell phone reception, and then you hear they're going to give you cell phone reception, and you end up with Boost Mobile.
Sick burn.
Ouch.
Well, I don't know. This doesn't look Boost Mobile to me. I mean, this doesn't look that bad. It just kind of looks generic.
It looks very generic. It looks like it doesn't look like Windows Phone. That's the one thing.
It sort of looks like a weirdo hack of Windows Phone. Like, it looks like something that's if Windows Phone could be jailbroken still, it looks like something that somebody would build for Windows Phone.
It looks like, yeah, it does. It looks like a Windows Phone developer took Notification Center, the old Notification Center, so not the new one, and they're like, how can we make this look like Windows Phone?
Yeah.
So it's not a direct copy of Notification Center, but it looks very, very much like it.
And that's the thing with Windows Phone, like the aesthetics of the entire UI and the flow of how, you move from app to app and screen to screen doesn't lend itself to what we're typically used to with a Notification Center. You're pulling up from the top or the bottom and, you're swiping things away.
True.
It's different. The look and feel and the interaction that you have with a Windows Phone would be different than anything that we're typically used to on other Notification Centers. So, yeah, we've seen some screenshots. We don't know how it actually works yet. It could be that these are some prototype screenshots.
Yeah.
And something else is coming.
Even
if it's bad, it's better than nothing. This is the reason why I don't use Windows Phone at all. I review the HTC Windows phones when they come out, and as soon as my review is done, I toss that thing back in the box and send it back to HTC because I can't handle not having notification.
Yeah. Well,
and to all those people who are like, yeah, but that's what the live tiles are for. That is not a solution. It does not work like that.
It became more of a solution on a larger screen with a higher resolution. The 1520, I found I could live without a Notification Center for longer. I really could, because you had all that real estate to fill up with live tiles. And on the icon, arguably, you could say the same thing. But I agree, a Notification Center is a much better solution. But frankly, I'm worried about what this is going to do to live tiles. Because you know what happened when iOS unveiled the Notification Center? I turned off all those stupid badges that I hated so much on iOS. And I just used the Notification Center for everything. And then I hated Life because Notification Center sucked. But live tiles are an essential component of Windows Phone. So what happens when you have a Notification Center and live tiles? You either have duplicate notifications, or you turn off the one thing about live tiles that makes them awesome, which is constant notifications.
Well, you could think about it differently, live tiles as widgets.
Sure.
There's a difference between a notification and
a widget display.
Live information.
Yeah, you're right.
You could have your weather updates. You can have a news feed update. You can have social media updates. Not necessarily messages to you. And that's where I see the clear distinction. Android has clear distinction between this is a widget and this is passive information versus active information within your notification, something that you should take action on.
You should act on. Yeah. I get that. So that would be a good way of culling it and kind of splitting those two categories. Is anybody else concerned that this thing looks like it drops down from the top? Because I don't want that to happen.
Well, no, because look, if you look at the bottom of the far right screenshot, there's a little blue tinted bar
that thing
at the very bottom. And if you look at the screenshot to the left, that bar is at the top under the all settings thing. So it feels like that pulls down once you're in this, whatever this is.
No, I think that left screenshot is you're pulling down over whatever the existing thing is they had on the screen, which looks to be the messaging app.
Oh, that might be it. I don't know.
So it looks like you pull down from the top. And I understand that's the standard now. I understand that Android did it, and then iOS copied Android and did it, and now I guess we're going to do this on Windows Phone. But it still makes so much more sense to have this at the bottom. I'm not just being like a WebOS weirdo. Like that, they make more sense at the bottom. That's where your thumb is. That's where the notifications should go. That's where you should dismiss them from and act on them from. I hate top-mounted notifications. And screens are so much bigger now. It makes no sense.
But that's where your notifications display on Android, like in your status bar. So it would make no sense on Android to pull up from the bottom.
No, because that's where that's where the status bar was in WebOS too. And the notifications would come up from the bottom, yes, but they were actionable from there, and it just made more sense. I don't know. I hate this. We're in a world of 6-inch displays. We have the same old hand size we've always had, and we have to use two hands to get at our notification bar, or we have to risk dropping a phone by doing some convoluted one-handed maneuver to get it. It's dumb.
# first world probs.
That's our entire industry.
Yes, it is.
Reporting on first world problems since 2002.
Can I talk
We
about
just
another
renamed
first
the
world
podcast.
problem really quickly?
Yeah, what? But no, you can't. You're the one complaining that we're running long. You can't talk about anything extra.
Taco Bell is testing ordering tacos and Taco Bell food from a smartphone. I just had to plug that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that sounds like something I really don't need to know about.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be really good.
Fortunately for you, it's only in Orange County right now. So.
That is fortunate for me. I'm also, in related news, I'm moving. Nokia announcing
To
Lumia.
the south.
Yeah, Lumia 930 and 630 and 635 at MWC is the latest rumor. I love Jaime's phrasing here. Even though the rumors point to Nokia announcing a lot of devices at MVC, we can't lie to you about the fact that many of us were kind of worried about it. What the hell are you talking about, Jaime? Nobody was worried about it. We talked on this very show last week about how that's the normal thing for NBC. They do mid-range ever since last year, but I'm just picking on him because he's not on the show. The tipster NextLeaks has informed us that there are some claims we might be seeing a Lumia 930, successor to the 920 presumably, and also a Lumia 630 or 635 as a 620 successor. So I just threw this in the rundown because it needed to be put out there as news. I don't think we need to talk about it unless you guys have any thoughts on it.
Nope.
No. No thoughts on this. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what actually comes of MWC, given all the rumors we're dealing with. There are four stories remaining in two separate categories. The first of those categories, iOS. Folks, is this the iPhone 6? What do you think, Nick?
Way too early. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like it could be, but I'll give it a pass and say there's something else around the corner.
So you don't think that this leaked shell photo for presumably either an iPhone 6 or a larger iPod Touch, you don't think that it may be coming out early because of a shift in the production cycle that would allow Apple to release a new iPhone at WWDC?
I mean, Apple could choose to launch a new iPhone every other month. I mean, you lose all your investment in R&D and marketing and all that if you move up your launch every single time. We've seen them stay steady with their fall launches for a couple of years now, and they've been very successful with that. There's nothing wrong with that. They've sold more and more iPhones every single time. Why mess with something that's proven to be successful?
It's a solid point, and I would be completely on your side, and I actually do agree, but the devil's advocate in me says that even when they expanded their screen size to the current 4 inches, it was not enough. That I think a lot of people are used to a larger display now in the regular consumer circles, not just between nerds, and that the company might be feeling the pressure to do a larger screened iPhone sooner rather than later. That's the weak devil's advocate argument that I have.
Can I just say that this thing looks even more ridiculous than the iPhone 5 did when they announced that? In that it's super skinny and very long.
It is.
If this is it just, I just don't know. That whole TV remote joke keeps coming back to me.
What is that joke?
Oh, it just looks like a TV remote more so than a phone. Like there's nothing much to it. That's all.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Did you see the mocking videos of the iPhone 5 or the iPhone 10, and it was simply the same width, but the length was, with every version, they essentially add a half an inch to the phone. So the iPhone 10 was like 17 inches tall or whatever.
That's what this looks like.
And it's like a lightsaber.
Actually, you could have some really killer lightsaber apps on a phone like that. This doesn't look ridiculous. I don't think the 5 looked ridiculous. I think stretching it vertically was a good way to go. I think the 5 is the prettiest iPhone there has been.
No, but it just looked weird at first.
Sure. Just
like a phone with a 2 image sensors on the back is going to look weird at first.
That's going to look weird for the entire duration of its lifetime.
No,
if it looks like that. Yeah.
You are melodramatic.
I am a big complainer, a whiner. Hey, speaking of slim, if that's not the iPhone 6 or if it is The news has it that Apple's going to slim down their next generation products. That's not really news. The news is that they'll do it by slimming down the backlight component, which currently is a 0.6 millimeter LED on its current generation devices. And they're going to switch to a 0.4 millimeter component. I love that. We're not even talking about millimeters. We're talking about fractions of a millimeter, and a 30% reduction in that fraction of a millimeter measurement is going to result somehow in a thinner device. I'm not saying this is not accurate. I know it sounds like I'm questioning this, but I just find it fascinating that we've reached that point of material sophistication and hardware construction that tiny little changes like that can make such a tangible difference in hand feel, you know? It's really cool.
Yeah, if you've used an iPad mini or an iPad Air, they are so thin already. And even the phones are extremely thin if you compare them to pretty much anything else out there. And I feel that there is a point where being too thin isn't actually a thing. Because you have the question of durability when it gets so thin. In-hand feel, it'll feel a lot like Sony's devices, where it just doesn't really conform to your hand because it's so thin. And it just, to me, I don't know why Apple is so hung up on making everything so thin. I'd rather, and Jaime said this, I've said it a million times, I'd rather see them take that extra space to pack in more battery. And maybe that's what they're doing. That's what I hope they're doing.
Maybe it is what they will do. And I think we have a long time to wait, or not a very long time to wait, depending on who you believe. Nick, I'm with you, though. I really don't think we're going to see an early release on the iPhone 6. But either way, we will find out at some point. And before we get to listener mail, I want to talk very briefly about something else that's getting a little bit thinner. The Pebble. Taylor, you compared the Pebble Steel and the Pebble, and you found the Pebble Steel to be vastly inferior, and you wished for your old plastic little Pebble, right?
Absolutely.
Good. I'm glad I got that correct.
Actually, it's quite the opposite.
Moving on. Quite the opposite. The Pebble Steel is your favorite thing to ever put on your wrist. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
But I don't put many things on my wrist.
It's a short list. It's a short list.
Yeah. It feels better in every single way. And my biggest problem with the Pebble, and I didn't know it until I got the Steel, was the buttons on the sides. They're very, very, very difficult to press. Not very difficult. They're difficult to press. They have a lot of resistance, and you have to pinch. You can't just push the button. You have to pinch the other side of the watch. And you still have to do it with the Steel, but you don't have to just grip the thing, and that just
you really had to mash those buttons on the first Pebble.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Like you can see it in the video, and some people probably think I'm exaggerating. You literally have to just press really hard to push the buttons in. And on this one, it's just like a very simple click, like it would be on a normal watch. Just very, very light touch buttons.
Is the screen higher resolution on the Pebble Steel, or is it the same component?
Same exact display.
It's crazy because it looks so much better on the Steel, probably because the glass over it is not curved, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that in the comparison, but I think I'm just saving that for the full review because it does look better, and I didn't want to mention it in the video and be wrong about it, but I wanted to check with maybe Miriam or some other people to see if they corroborate that it does look better, even especially when you're on something that has a white background. It doesn't look like, if you hold the original Pebbles at an angle. So the original Pebble at an angle, you can see kind of discoloration in the display, almost like it's wavy beneath the plastic.
They're Newton's circles or something like that. Brian Klug at Engadget taught me about that. They are a result of some sort of angular diffraction of light. Newton's rings is what they're called. Phenomenon
that
where
happen
an interference
at all.
pattern is created by the reflection of light between two surfaces. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't happen at all.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, there's two layers of plastic between the screen and the LED.
The LCD component?
E-reader panel, yeah. And it's that minor difference in how those layers are positioned that's causing that. Yeah, I was doing some research as well, and I was like, oh my gosh, can't they fix that?
Yeah, but it looks so much better now. So much better.
Because it's under Gorilla Glass 2, and it's just a flat cut.
Yeah, and I said in the video that Gorilla Glass 2 will help from shattering and hopefully help scratches. And somebody commented something like LOL, Gorilla Glass, stop shattering, give me a break, or something to that degree. And it will, because if you think about it, how much more difficult is it to drop a watch than it is a smartphone?
Yeah,
you're not going to drop the watch. The thing that's going to happen to your watch is you bang it on a table or a counter or a wall.
A doorknob or a hinge. They're really well placed to get your wrist.
Yeah, and for that, I don't think you're going to hit something with as much force as you would if you were dropping a phone. It's smaller, it has lower mass, and it's just not going to hit as hard. The big thing will be scratches, because Gorilla Glass 2 does scratch. So
yeah. Well, we're looking forward to your official verdict on that. Nick, are you a wearables guy? Do you have a smartwatch or a smart ring or a smart pendant or anything like that?
I wish I had a smart ring. That would be awesome.
It is a smart tongue ring.
I do have a Pebble, the original, and I wear a Fitbit. I've been wearing my Fitbit now for about 3 months.
Right. So you're one of those guys at CES I was talking about that has a Fitbit on your right wrist and a Pebble on your left.
Yeah. Yeah, and, honestly, I wish I didn't have to wear my Fitbit. Technically, the Pebble has the same type of hardware built in, and someone needs to create a step tracking app for it. And
there is one. There is one once you get the App Store.
Yeah, but it's just bugging me. I really wanted to get the Pebble Steel, but I use my Pebble as my running companion. I use it with Map My Run or Runkeeper, and track my distance and my time and stuff when I run or when I bike. In the summer, I bike to work, 13-mile bike ride each way. Jeez. And it's always nice. It tells you your average pace or your current speed, stuff like that.
So why can't you get the Pebble Steel?
You can, except I don't want to wear a Pebble Steel with a leather or a metal band when I'm sweating to death. It's not. And so I was really hoping that they would release a plastic band that would go along with it, so that those who do use it for workouts would be comfortable wearing it. Because you don't want to take. You could take a metal watch to the pool, but you don't want to go swimming with a watch that has a metal band. If you're doing laps at the pool, you want something that's a little bit lighter.
I think we've discovered the business plan here. This is why the Pebble Steel is in limited quantities. They want you to hold on to your original Pebble, buy the Pebble Steel, and wear the latter when you want to be fancy, and keep the former for when you want to go exercising. That's what we've. Here we go.
That's what I would have to do right now if I wanted to buy the Pebble Steel. I would hold on to my original because I need it for working out.
Yeah, so that's something I noted in the video, that you can't swap the watch bands with just anything because it has that little middle column. But Pebble is open sourcing the blueprints, I guess, or the dimensions, really, for the watch strap. So you might see some aftermarket watch straps for Pebble Steel, and I hope we do.
Well,
as soon as they're available, I will order my Pebble Steel.
If you want, I would like to order mine, but I have gift cards that I can't use on Pebble's website, so I have to wait for it to come to Best Buy, which it probably never will. So I'm just going to have a sad face on my face forever.
I'm going to have to order one because I can't go back to my original after this.
I'm really very jealous. I wish that those were long-term loaners, but they are not. Got to give them back very quickly.
Yeah. Is this one coming to you?
No,
for maybe a gear?
It can't. No, I think it has to go back pretty quickly. But we'll talk about it off the air. I would like to do a rebuttal. Hey, if you want more options on your wrist for apps in terms of exercise and other crappy sentences that I started and don't know how to finish, the Galaxy Gear 2 might very well come out alongside the Galaxy S5, but its pricing is still undetermined, according to some sources.
$500.
Now, that's what I was going to ask, to close out the wearables category and the news in general. Do you guys think that Samsung will have learned its lesson from the first Galaxy Gear in terms of the pricing fiasco? Do you think that this will come out at a lower price point, despite what is doubtless going to be a more advanced piece of hardware?
Has Samsung learned its lesson in the tablet category?
Well, they had their lesson taught to it in terms of software by Googs, so
but
they're not incapable of change.
But the Note Pro is rumored to be over $1,000 on Verizon.
That's not going to happen.
Well, that's an LTE device. I mean, if you look at any LTE device, they're at least $200 more expensive than what a regular Wi-Fi device is. I don't think they learned their lesson.
You don't think so? So you think it's going to come out at the same or similar price point as the existing one at $299?
Yeah, I mean, they might drop it a little bit, but you can still buy two Pebbles for the price of it. Seriously.
Well, not with the Steel anymore. I mean, if they launch this thing at $249 and bump the existing gear down to say $199, that seems to me like that would be a likely outcome of this. And the Pebble Steel is $249, right, Taylor?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be my guess. I actually don't think that Nick, I'm with you. I think that they're going to be at $299. Between $249 and $299, maybe $279. That would be a nice little intermediate point. It's like, hey, we dropped the price and we gave you a new one. But
sort of.
We only dropped about $20. Yeah.
And this one is better than an unripe tomato.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm quite excited to see it. I think it's going to be really cool. If the Galaxy Gear 1 is what they can whip up in a very, very short development time, I'm excited to see what they've done with the additional months. And I know
I don't need to do a million things, though. That's the thing. I don't need to take pictures from my wrist. I never will. And that to me is something that just completely is a waste of money or cost in the manufacturing of it. I don't think many people will ever take a picture from the wrist. You don't count, Michael, because you're just super nerdy.
No, I mean, I'm super nerdy, and I don't even do it anymore. I did it for the 2 days after I got the gear, and then I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
so it is a waste.
If you were a creeper.
Yeah, if you're a super creeper, then you do it. Absolutely. Because I was going to write an editorial, but I couldn't figure out how to phrase it. But the headline was essentially going to be look how much of a creeper you can be with the Galaxy Gear. Because you really can, and it's really scary. But,
to get the page views, you need to do top 10 tips to be a creeper with Galaxy Gear.
There you go, yeah. I took a Galaxy Gear on the train. You won't believe what happened next.
Was this like a Nightline intro?
BuzzFeed, Pocketnow edition.
The fact that we're talking about wearables, there was some mention from HTC that they're going to be releasing a wearable before the end of the year.
Good point.
And Sherway, she mentioned that HTC's been looking at wearables, and there's some issues with wearables that they didn't want to get into the market until they had solved those issues. I think one of them people are saying is going to be battery life. The Galaxy Gear doesn't have tremendous battery life. I think the latest update makes it last double of what it did before, so you get 2 days now?
No. It's about 4 days now. It was always... Oh,
really?
Yeah, it was never less than 2 days since the first software update, at least for me. And I get a lot of notifications, so,
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what HTC comes out with. Sherwing made it sound like they've been thoughtful about, just releasing a product and releasing the right product. Samsung... We all know Samsung just throws something out there to see what sticks and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think we all got the impression that's exactly what they did with the Galaxy Gear. So the Gear 2 is hopefully going to be a huge improvement over the first one.
I really hope so.
But it'll be interesting to see what HTC can do.
Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it myself, and hopefully we'll get one relatively soon after it's announced. That's going to close out for wearables, and because we are almost at the 2-hour mark, we still can't skip listener mail. Sorry, guys, but we only have 3 pieces to go. And by sorry, guys, I mean sorry, Taylor and Nick, who've been talking for 2 hours. Not sorry to the listeners who we've skipped for 2 weeks, I think. Let's get through these, and let's talk to Frank Reed from New York City first. Frank says, "Hi, guys, love the podcast. I have a long commute, and you all make it a little more bearable. With Lenovo,
only a little?
Just a tad. Commutes are tough. With Lenovo buying Motorola, HTC is rightly in the firing line. I picked this specifically for you, Nick, and we mentioned this a little bit before. With Sony getting out of the PC business, I think an HTC-Sony tie-up makes sense. Thoughts? Thanks for all the great content and informative and entertaining podcast, Frank Reed from New York City." Frank, thank you for the message. I like that you like your timing on this because when Nick came on the air, I looked for HTC mails, and this is a very recent one. Nick, seems like a 2-part question. Your thoughts?
I I don't think HTC is next up for an acquisition. Motorola has been in a tough spot for a long time. Before Google bought them, Google couldn't turn them around, handed them over essentially to Lenovo to see if they could breathe new life into it. I don't know, but that being said, Sony has had huge success in the last 2 years with Android. I think they're one of the better ones. They've been pushing high specs. The quality of some of their devices is a little skeptical at times, especially considering the fact that they make a lot of the components that are inside these phones. They make displays, and yet that's one of the main things that we complain about. And they make great camera sensors, and we yet complain about their camera performance. Mm-hmm. A tie-in, I've always been a huge Sony fan. A tie-in with Sony and HTC for me would be a match made in heaven. I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, and I would be very scared of Sony. This would be an acquisition in this hypothetical world we're living in. This wouldn't be a merger of equals or anything of that sort. So I would be very worried about Sony taking it, stripping it for patents, taking one or two very, very small ideas, and then basically just Sonyifying the whole thing. And while I'm a fan of both of them from an industrial design standpoint, I tend to favor HTC's designs from a hardware standpoint. So that's what would scare me, I think. I hope it doesn't happen. And I agree with you, Nick. I think we talked about this earlier in the show. I think HTC is, while not necessarily a healthy business, certainly not in the crazy dire straits that a lot of the kind of FUD makes it seem like, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe if we have the same conversation in 2 to 3 years and if things haven't picked up for HTC, could be, but we're not there yet.
Good stuff. Frank, thank you again for the email and for the thoughts. Taylor, you want to go ahead and read the next one here from Imran from the UK?
Yeah, sure. It says, in the event of a fire, or following Austin Evans' recent fire tragedy, thankfully no one was hurt, it made me wonder, in the event of a fire, what 3 bits of tech would you take and why? Also, does any event like this diminish any fanboyism? As in, I'll only pick up my Apple, Samsung, HTC gear before anything else. Surely, loyalty to a brand can't be that real. Your thoughts would be greatly appreciated. Yours truly, Imran.
This is a good question, and
it is. The first part I understand. The second, I don't know if I quite understand the question.
Well, yeah. So I like the first part of the question better too. Yeah. What 3 bits of tech would you take and why? I mean, and this seems a little more, but I want to make clear. It should be clear already, but we're not making light of Austin's fire situation. But this is a really, really cool question because Austin was only able to get out with his MacBook and a safe full of stuff. But what 3 bits of tech would you take? Taylor, do you know the answer that you would give?
Well, I know the MacBook would be there.
Yeah.
For sur. I would have to grab that because that's the most expensive thing I own outside my car. Probably the Moto X. Mm-hmm. And one other, I'd probably have to grab my camera. No. This is what I was afraid of. You do the same thing?
You and I would pick the exact same things. I would take the MacBook. I would take my Sony NEX F3 because it's what I use every single day to make stuff for Pocketnow. And between the phones that I personally own, the Lumia 1020 and the Moto X, I think the Moto X would be more convenient for me in the days following such an event. And also, it's the ebony one, so it's a little more
dear to your heart.
Dear to me. And it has my name on it, and it says, "Good morning, Captain," when it turns on. And it's burrowed its way into my heart. I'm really looking forward to going.
What if you turn it on at night?
What? Oh, if I turn it on at night? Oh, it still says, "Good morning, Captain." It's a Star Trek joke. Don't worry about it. It's cool.
Fail.
Cool.
Let's answer the question a little bit. Let's assume that you have your phone on you. So what else would you take? Your phone's in your pocket, so you don't have to get it.
Okay.
There's one other device. Because, I mean, obviously your phone is the thing that you're going to have, but what else? I'm having a hard time because I was like, I'll take my phone, but I'm like, that's in my pocket. I'd take my laptop. I have the Lenovo Yoga 13 from last year. Ooh. And then I would actually grab my MyBook 2 terabyte hard drive. And
nice.
Stick that in my bag. I have a decade's worth of digital pictures on that hard drive from when I was in college to when I was engaged to birth of my daughters, weddings, everything, and that must come. Like if I were to choose anything, that's got to be there.
I've got a hard drive that's been sitting in a bag for 2 years that I have to restore because it's got a lot of pictures on there. I feel you. That's a solid point. Hard drive, I like that.
But I don't know. Besides the phone, I don't know what else I would take. I'm like, if you would have asked me a month ago, I would have said my wife's Nikon D800, but she sold it. And now we have an NEX5, and I'm like, yeah, I could just buy another one. Who cares?
Yeah, if we're talking practicality, all of my stuff typically stays in my book bag that I take with me every day. So I'd probably just grab that, but we can't.
You're not allowed to do that. Yeah, no. It's like
we can't
like
plan
saying, like,
for stuff like
you get
this.
a genie, it's the 3 wishes, and your first wish is like, I want 1,000,000 wishes. Like, we're not 7.
Yeah, so we can't talk practically, but if we were to talk practically, I probably would grab my MacBook, a phone, and my dog.
Well, your dog isn't a tech item.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not just going to grab tech stuff. I'm going to grab stuff that's more important than tech.
Nick changed the question in a constructive way. You're changing the question in a dumb way.
How?
Because
by saying that I'm not necessarily going to grab something that's tech?
No, because those are the confining elements of the question. You have 3 tech things you can get. Which are the ones you pick? Like, I'm not interested in whether you're going to take your, monogrammed bathrobe. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's a narrowly confined situation.
You're telling me that you wouldn't grab your Trekkie stuff?
I'm not telling you that. I'm not telling you that at all. I would grab,
You would die in a fire trying to get it all out.
I would give up all of my tech stuff for my stuffed dinosaur. I'm telling you that completely honestly, like that. But that's not within the confines of the question. Like it's a tech question. Anyway, Taylor can't follow the rules, so we have to.
I
move
don't
on.
follow rules.
You suck.
I messed it up.
No, Nick, you did it right. No, you don't take the fall for Taylor. Taylor's the podcast whipping boy.
I'm bringing you all down.
That was a cool
question.
I
should have known better. I've known Taylor for a couple of years now. I should have known better that he would be able to handle it.
That he would transmute that magically into something that would ruin every bit of fun.
You could grab 3 things when you're running out. I would grab my kitchen sink, my refrigerator, and a microwave.
Perfect. And 1 tile from the kitchen floor.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Hey, Nick, would you do us the honor of reading the last piece of listener mail?
Before we jump to that, I just wanted to say Austin Evans is he moved into an apartment now, so he's
good,
moving forward and things are going well. And I just want to say that we all wish him the best.
Yeah,
because and we're very thankful that nothing was everything turned out the way it did.
I would love to have been in on the gifting of that new Mac Pro to him. I didn't know that was happening until it already happened because I'm not in with some of those guys. But
yeah, I didn't know it happened either.
Yeah, it was really cool though. Some guys got together, including John Rettinger and a bunch of other people. I'm sorry, I can't name because I don't remember them right now. But they gifted him they gave him a new Mac Pro, which is just amazing and so cool. And we're gonna ask him
Samsung.
about
Samsung hooked him up too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they sent him a Galaxy Note 10.1 2014 edition, a Note 3, and a Galaxy Gear.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk to him on the VIP next week. I believe we're still on for that. I have to confirm it, but he's going to be our next guest on the Pocketnow VIP. So I'm really excited to talk to him again. It's a great guy. Nick, why don't you go ahead and read that last piece of email?
I'm going to have to pass. My laptop died.
Oh, no. Our podcast went on so long that your computer it got exhausted. Okay.
Yeah, mine is almost dead as well, and my charger's not anywhere near me.
All right, then I'll do this real quick. This is from Jonathan Michael in Manila, Philippines. Hi, Pocketnow team, he says. I had an epiphany that is bogging me quite some time about the future of smartphones and tablets. I think that's bugging me. Well, whether haters will hate or not, the iPhone and iPad succeeded in phones and tablets where the others crashed and burned. I don't know if that's hating to dispute that. I just think it's a pretty broad claim that's not really supported. But, however, I am just getting a little bit concerned because for the past 2 years, all they seem to do is add features that nobody will use and crank up screen resolutions. That's as everybody else. Do you think that the smartphone and tablet innovation plateaued just as PCs plateaued in innovation and they're spiraling down in sales? Because at the end of the day, iOS, Android, and Windows Phone or any other phone do the same thing. Jonathan, I disagree with most of your points. I want to say that right now. but
Thanks, Michael.
But the reason that this email is great is because you ask a very important question, Jonathan, and that is, do we think we're plateauing?
No.
And this is why I bring it up, because I think it's important to check in every so often. Because if you are a writer for a tech site or a reader of many tech sites, it's very easy to get that feeling. Because you're very familiar with the product, you're seeing iterations on existing lines and just kind of feature adds to existing products that maybe are not too valuable. So have we reached a point where it's just all not interesting and we have to jump to the next thing and just accept that we've reached an uninteresting time? Taylor, your answer is no.
Yeah.
Why?
I feel we've reached an equilibrium where you don't necessarily have to feel like you're outdated within 3 weeks, where your technology lasts a little longer, and manufacturers are but they're having to focus on innovation more. So we're in a lull because this innovation really hasn't quite happened yet. We've seen peer review from Nokia and a few other things like a flexible screen, which you can debate the usefulness of a flexible screen or curved display.
Lifestyle improvements from Motorola.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of little things, but I think it's all kind of going to build up to this big, not a drastic revolution or change, but a turning of the industry where we're not at this kind of shock and awe every 2 or 3 weeks or months. So it's a long-term game, and it's slowing down, and that's a good thing rather than a bad thing.
Nick, what do you think?
I kind of agree. I think, honestly, like the power inside our smartphones is simply incredible. We have, if at CES, NVIDIA unveiled their new Tegra processors that they claim are just as powerful and yet 6 to 8 times more efficient than the chips inside of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. And if, yes, those Xbox 360 and PS3 are years old, but just imagine, like, just 6 months ago, people were perfectly fine playing high-end games on those devices. Mm-hmm. The issue is the technology has essentially exceeded our need for the technology. The processing power is 5 to 10 times more capable than what an app developer or a game maker can actually create for a mobile device, or what would actually be used on a mobile device. Everyone loves Asphalt 8 and its great graphics, but if the game was actually only created for the Snapdragon 800, those graphics would be 3 times better. Mm-hmm. Because they don't have to take into consideration other devices. I mean, the technology is so great that the developers are, they're developing for the lowest common denominator and not the highest common denominator, simply to be more inclusive. I think the level of innovation has slowed down on the technology, on the hardware side, because of that. I mean, it doesn't matter if you don't need a processor that's 2 times faster than last year's processor when all the apps that you're using are, optimized for a processor that's 6 times slower than last year's processor. Right. You simply don't need it. And that's where we're seeing companies focus more on what we would call throwaway features. Samsung and its 1001S features on its phone, mm-hmm. And things like that. LG is looking to put buttons on the back. They're looking to do knock-on, your eye scrolling and stuff like that. While it might seem gimmicky, it's pushing the market further and trying to change the way we interact with our devices. And I think that's a good thing. The hardware is exactly where it needs to be. It's actually ahead of where it needs to be. And we're just simply playing catch-up, trying to find different ways to use our phones for different things.
I agree, and that's a really solid point, and something I've been thinking about very recently, and I love that you both have kind of put it in words better than I could. But I think it's important to note that manufacturers are going about ways of using that technology very differently. Samsung and LG are very comparable examples, if you ask me. I mean, they're both, one is kind of aping the other, and then the other one decides to copy the other one, and they kind of go back and forth. But all those features are, with very few exceptions, kind of either useless or half-baked, and they don't work right. And with HTC, you had some interesting lifestyle innovation as far as the boom sound, the front-facing speakers, which is a small thing, and then you have Motorola, a handful of small things that work really, really well, that leverage the existing technology in a smarter way. I think that's the important way to go, and that's the reason why we're not going to see this. While we may be plateauing in terms of specs, we're not going to all of a sudden be in an industry where nothing has changed because it's all so good it can't get any better. We're a long way from that, and I think, Jonathan, that there's a lot more interesting stuff coming. Because if we stop here, this is in 2 years, this is going to look like a pretty rough state of technology, I think. So I
think we'll all be out of jobs.
yeah, exactly. We don't want to envision that world. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan, Imran, thank you. And Frank, thank you. Thank you, everyone who wrote in to our listener mail inbox. Sorry we couldn't get to all of the listener mail, but this has been a very long show. Nick, I think you have the distinction of having joined us for one of, if not our longest podcast ever. So I want to really thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
This has been a long show, very long.
It has. And we have other things to do, so we have to get to them. But Nick, I hope it won't be the last time. You are wonderful. I'm sorry it took us this long to get you on the air, but please, 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 let's do it again because this was great.
Definitely.
Awesome. Taylor, get back to work on your review. I'll get back to work on mine, and we will both try and survive the snowfall. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Well, in that case, that's going to do it for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly. Congratulations once again to our Nexus 5 giveaway winner, and thank you all for joining us, folks. And we love your listener mail. Even if it doesn't make it to the airwaves, we do read every piece sent to us at podcast@pocketnow.com. Find us on Twitter. Our guest is Nick M. Gray, NickMGray. Taylor is at Casper Tech, and I am Captain Two Phones. You can also follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, and you can visit us at forums.pocketnow.com. Finally, if you enjoy the show, and we hope you do, please leave us a review on iTunes, Xbox Music, Stitcher, and wherever else podcasts are heard. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we will be in your ears again next week.
Oh my God!
You know, it's fun. We're also time traveling. This is great. Taylor's
two sensors that work in conjunction with one another, and they take
vortex. And we're actually, we're not even speaking at the same time. It's like we're in different worlds entirely, different worlds apart. Journey's a great band. Oh,
should we ping and pong?
No, there's no need because you're just so far away. So far away from me, so far I just can't see. Until Taylor's internet connection returns, I'm going to stop singing Dire Straits songs.
16 or 32 gigabytes of storage and a 13 megapixel optically stabilized image stabilized. I can't even talk right now.
Optically image stabilized.
Optically image stabilized. I said it again.